In August 2015, a 30-year-old bricklayer attempted to demolish a wall by manually pushing against it at a job site. As the first section of brickwork collapsed, a second adjacent wall lost stability and fell toward him. Demolition work must follow controlled procedures that account for structural dependencies between connected walls. Before initiating manual demolition, a hazard assessment should identify load paths and potential secondary collapses. At a tire storage yard, multiple vertical stacks were positioned closely together. During handling, a worker pushed one stack to the ground. The stack fell, causing adjacent stacks to lose balance and topple. The worker was within the fall zone and was reported injured during the incident. Freestanding tire stacks can become unstable when force is applied. Using racking systems, maintaining proper spacing, and keeping workers outside potential collapse zones are essential measures to prevent chain reaction tipping incidents. At a construction site, a bulldozer was reversing during routine operations. A worker was positioned behind the machine and came into contact with it. A bystander shouted to alert the worker, but the warning came too late to prevent the incident. Heavy equipment operating in reverse presents serious blind spot hazards. Workers should remain outside the path of moving machinery, and operators must use mirrors, cameras, alarms, and, where possible, spotters to ensure the area is clear. Establishing exclusion zones and maintaining constant communication between operators and ground personnel are essential to preventing struck-by incidents on construction sites. At a construction site, an excavator was digging a trench for pipeline installation. During the operation, a worker entered the trench area by standing inside the excavator bucket to inspect the excavation. While he was positioned within the trench, soil from the surrounding walls suddenly collapsed. The worker became trapped during the cave-in. Workers must never enter an unprotected trench. Proper protective systems such as trench boxes, shoring, or sloping must be in place before entry. Safe access methods and soil stability assessments are critical to preventing fatal trench collapse incidents. At a worksite, 2 workers attempted to reposition a mobile scaffolding structure. One worker remained seated on the top platform, while the second worker pushed the scaffold to move it across the surface. During the movement, the structure became unstable and tipped. The worker positioned at height fell with the scaffold. The individual was reported injured during the incident. Mobile scaffolding must never be moved while personnel are positioned on the platform. Before relocation, workers should descend completely, and the scaffold should be pushed only on level obstruction-free surfaces with wheel locks properly managed. Following manufacturer guidelines and basic stability principles is essential to prevent tip-over incidents during scaffold repositioning. On January 8, 2016, a driver was unloading a dump truck when the trailer was raised on uneven ground. As the load was discharged, the elevated trailer became unstable due to the surface conditions and angle of positioning. The vehicle tipped during the unloading process. Dump trucks must only be unloaded on firm, level surfaces to maintain stability during elevation. Before raising the trailer, drivers should assess ground conditions, confirm proper alignment, and avoid excessive tilt angles. Maintaining stable positioning and following safe unloading procedures are critical to preventing rollover incidents during material discharge operations. At a storage facility, a worker was unloading materials from a truck using a hand trolley. During the unloading process, the load shifted unexpectedly, causing the materials to fall and trap the worker beneath them. When handling materials on trolleys or other mobile equipment, loads should be evenly balanced and properly secured before movement. Using mechanical aids, maintaining clear communication, and following safe unloading procedures can prevent injuries from shifting loads. At a construction site, a front loader was reversing along an internal access road while routine operations were underway. A worker was positioned on the roadway behind the machine. Due to limited rear visibility and the operator's blind spot, the loader continued reversing and made contact with the worker. Mobile equipment operating in reverse presents significant blind spot hazards. Designated pedestrian walkways, exclusion zones around moving machinery, and the use of spotters are critical controls. Operators should rely on reversing alarms, mirrors, and camera systems, while workers must avoid standing behind active equipment. Coordinated traffic management plans significantly reduce the risk of struck-by incidents on construction sites. At a construction site, operations were taking place simultaneously on multiple levels of a building. A worker was performing tasks at ground level while material handling activities were underway on an upper floor. During the process, a hand trolley became unsecured and fell from the elevated level to the area below and made contact with the worker. When tasks are performed at height above active work areas, strict overhead protection and tool control measures are essential. Materials and equipment must be secured to prevent accidental displacement. Establishing controlled drop zones, installing tow boards or barriers, and coordinating activities between levels significantly reduces the risk of injuries from falling objects on construction sites. On December 13, 2020, in a warehouse storage yard in Vietnam, several stacks of bagged cement, about 4 meters high, were positioned along an aisle. A car was parked nearby when the unsecured stacks suddenly collapsed, pushing the vehicle backward and causing damage. A man inside the car was pulled out by bystanders and received medical attention. Heavy bagged materials should be stacked with stable bases and proper restraints to prevent tipping. Personnel and vehicles must stay clear of potential collapse zones, and stacking heights should follow safe handling guidelines. On January 15, 2018, in Austin, Texas, USA, a crane was being used to lift a wall section during construction activities. While the lift was underway, one of the supporting cables failed, causing the crane to lose stability and collapse. Several workers were positioned nearby but moved quickly away from the falling structure. Despite the severity of the equipment failure, only one individual was reported injured during the incident, and injuries were described as minor. Crane operations require strict inspection of cables, rigging components, and load limits before every lift. Establishing and enforcing exclusion zones ensures that workers remain clear of potential collapse areas. Routine equipment checks, adherence to engineered lift plans, and maintaining safe distances from suspended loads significantly reduce the risk of injury during heavy lifting operations. At a workplace where powered industrial trucks were in operation, a worker was present in areas where the safe separation between pedestrian walkways and vehicle paths had not been established. During operations, a moving forklift came into proximity with the worker, creating a hazardous situation. Pedestrian and vehicle zones must be clearly separated in workplaces where powered industrial trucks operate. Where separation is not possible, pedestrian access must be restricted during truck operation. Workers should always maintain visual contact with operators, avoid blind spots especially behind vehicles, and communicate intentions clearly to prevent collisions with moving equipment.